Welcome back. It's episode 6 of the Sons of Pitches podcast. We're doing another weekly roundup, a little bit different, a little makeshift this week. I am on vacation, as you can tell, a little different background. But the boys are here. We're ready to talk. We got a couple of big games. It's about that time of year where a couple leagues are taking a break. So we only have so many leagues to talk about, but still some interesting games, especially table implications. Speaking of table implications, we'll go ahead and jump right into England, where we saw Arsenal drop all 6 points this weekend, taking them well far down the table compared to where they would want to be. Who caught some of those games, and how do we feel?
Yeah, I caught both the games. Obviously the first one they lost 2-0 to West Ham. And, it was another one of those performances where Arsenal, where it was a story of a lack of finishing for them. They go into the game, I think they would probably expect to win this game on paper. I know West Ham's not a bad side at all by any means, but I think Arsenal should expect to go into just about every game wanting to get 3 points. And this is the same story, and they didn't get that. And I think it was a classic West Ham performance in terms of their point of view for the game. It was David Moyes at his best. Sit back, defend, be as strong tactically and organized and sound as you can, and then hit them with the chances you got. Souček, he took really the only chance that West Ham had in the first 15 minutes going forward, and then they got a corner in the second half. Mavropanos with a big man header against his former side. I thought it was kind of funny that he didn't celebrate. I don't even remember him ever playing at all for Arsenal, but he put his hands up to apologize, I guess, which was kind of funny. But he had a big smirk on his face, like he was laughing about it. So that was pretty funny, I thought. But yeah. I think that it's just a story of them lacking a real goal scorer up front. Saka's not really been doing the numbers he was doing last season. Martinelli, the same story. I think he's been pretty shocking actually this season in terms of his performances he was putting in last season. And Jesus he doesn't find the net. He gets all these great chances. He misses so many sitters. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. Maybe that's why Pep let him go. Maybe that's why we never saw him really get a foothold in Man City's first team, and that's why he's missing all these chances now. I think maybe Pep kind of knew that already going in. I don't know what you guys thought about it, but at least for that game, I thought it was kind of the same old story for Arsenal. They just couldn't finish.
Yeah, I think it's kind of worrying times for Arsenal. You're at home. And at that point, I think they were level. Well, they're not. I think they were level on points at the top of the table with Arsenal. If not, they were a point behind. I think that was pretty. I don't know. It was a pretty lame performance, and it kind of bled into the game against Fulham. If you want to talk about the next match that they played, because it was the same story. They took the lead early, and then just kind of it all capitulated. Saka had a great chance to level the game, one that he really should score if we're going to consider him to be this, oh my God, another world-class English talent. He's probably going to end up like the rest of them. And now I don't know what it is with him. Like the season, I think he has less goals from open play than Mudryk, than guys like Nicholas Jackson, who are the ones who are always getting clowned down and made fun of. But it doesn't seem like Arsenal have that real leader yet. I think Odegaard's not much of a captain, in my opinion. And
he shies away.
Even he's been playing under his standard. A lot of the idiots were comparing him to De Bruyne. He's never going to be on the level of De Bruyne. But Point being, I think this is a reality check for Arsenal. I think if they were really going to win the league, it was going to be last season. They had a golden chance. Now you see teams like Liverpool have improved a lot. They're obviously leading the league. Spurs have looked great. I think they missed out, and I think the pressure is going to mount more and more as the weeks go on, especially if these results continue. They're in a little bit of a bad run of form. They went away to Liverpool and didn't win as well. So, it's 3 games with 1 point during this Christmas period. I know the games come thick and fast. They have a little of a break. We'll see how they rebound. But I think it's not quite alarm bells yet for Arsenal, but definitely something to monitor. We'll see if the heads drop further.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because since December 9th, which is when they lost to Aston Villa, which obviously was Aston Villa's mark on their title contention. If you want to talk about the Champions League, they tied their last game, which it is what it is. But then beat Brighton, sure, again, which Brighton is a good club. We'll get to them soon. But then tie Liverpool, who are now at the top of the league, and then, like you said, drop points twice in a row at home and then away again. And it's like, but they
Yeah.
also, in that period, why I brought that period up is they score like 3 goals in those, like,
Mm.
3 or 4 goals in those, like, 5 or 6 games. And like you said, they're
Yep.
just not scoring. And then if you look at, like, from the numbers wise, right, we're not always just going to sit and look at numbers, but we like to look at them. They dominate possession in both games with 60 plus in both games. More even in chances in terms of shots and stuff in the Fulham game, which they were at home, so they should dominate more of that possession. But then they just can't capitalize. And then in West Ham, who had 6 shots all game, right, could have had 3 goals if they didn't miss their PK in the 96th minute or whatever it was. And
Mm.
whatever, good on Raya making the save, but it's like, here are teams coming, capitalizing on chances, which that's the name of the sport, right? But Arsenal are creating 30 plus chances at home, and he can't even put one in the back of the net. You know what I mean? And it, like, credit to Areola. I mean, he was always touted to be like one of the world's next best, but like he's just also not the greatest keeper. So it's not like he's this brick wall that they can't get past. There's just no one that has that clinical touch. And maybe,
Yeah,
I mean, we're in January, so maybe that's the plan.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to say something about Raya too. I mean, I know I mentioned it before that Arsenal. I mean, it raises questions for me why they have two number ones at the same time, and why Raya is even in this place to begin with. And I think there's question marks to be asked of him in this game. I don't think I don't think he was great by all means. He really, like, in comparison to Ramsdale, he doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me, especially coming for crosses. That's the big difference I noticed, because Ramsdale comes for everything and he does not hesitate, and he'll clean guys out if he's not going to get there. Like, you see that all the time. Raya, he just flaps at shit, and it really bothers me. And I think I don't know. I think that's got something to do with it too. I think that I don't know. Maybe Ramsdale's going to get another chance. Maybe this number one job for Raya isn't so certain. We'll see. I think there's a lot to be decided there still.
Yeah, I wanted to say too about the goalkeeping situation at Arsenal. Regardless who the goalkeeper's been, they've had one clean sheet
Right.
in the past like 7 or 8 Premier League games. I mean, it's just not good enough for a team that like tries to act like they're Premier League title contenders. I know they're only 5 points off, but I haven't been convinced much by Arsenal. And just the other thing I wanted to touch again on the goal scoring situation, like Arteta knows. I mean, he rotated. I mean, he went with Nketiah against Fulham, and he didn't get a goal either. They still created a decent amount of chances. They were probably the better team in the game, but they just couldn't get it done. I wanted to bring up West Ham as well quickly. They're a team I have my eye on. Now, they broke it into the top 6. I don't know how much people are paying attention to West Ham, but they're in good form. I mean, ever since they got smashed by Fulham in the Premier League, they've been undefeated in the Premier League. They beat Wolves, who are absolutely on fire. Obviously, they beat United embarrassingly. I mean, United never even sniffed a chance to win that game. They go to London, they beat Arsenal, and they hold Brighton to a 0-0 draw today as day of recording. So it's kind of interesting. They have a 3-point gap between them and Brighton for 6th place, as well as United, who are also on 31 points. So we'll see. They look like they're flirting around. It's the best team David Moyes has had in a while, because West Ham
It's
they looked rough for a little while, especially the beginning of the season, the early days without Declan Rice. I was listening to the last podcast. I know you guys talked about them briefly too, but I think West Ham are in great form.
it's going to be tough for them though these next couple of weeks, because they're going to lose Kudus to AFCON, and Paqueta's out with a hamstring injury. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much all their creativity in the midfield gone.
Right.
So,
I know.
I mean, I think that really tells you the story. I mean, both of them really. I don't think Kudus played today for West Ham. So, I mean, no goals in that game tells you pretty much everything you need to know. I think about West Ham going forward the next couple of weeks. It's going to be pretty tough for them. So,
Yeah.
I know they're flying right now, but I think it's going to be. My prediction is that it's going to be a tough couple of weeks, I think, for them going forward.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let's move to the other game from last Thursday. It was a big one. Brighton beating Spurs. Kind of an unexpected result, in my opinion. I know Brighton were at home, and you guys were kind of talking about Brighton's injury situation. I didn't expect them to put to win the game, nor did I expect them to put 4 past Spurs, who I know have kind of been struggling with injuries as well. But I thought that was a pretty cool result. They're getting some players back. They got Stupinian back, right? He scored a absolute screamer. That was
Yeah.
cool to see. Joao Pedro's looking like he's really coming into his own in the Premier League. I forget
Yeah.
how many goals he's on this season. 7 goals, 2 assists.
The
But
assist
he
he had
seems
was
to
really
have
good
found
for
a little
Hinshelwood's
patch.
first goal as well, Joao Pedro. And I think
Yeah, he
the
looked
thing
great.
that's really, I mean, he's been scoring a lot of penalties, so that kind of boosts his stats a little bit. But if you actually watch
Right.
Brighton play, like, he's definitely their most influential player in attack. Like,
Mhm.
everything goes through him. So he's definitely, I don't know, he might not be there next season. I think he might be looking at a move away to a bigger club because he's definitely proven his worth, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I thought they looked pretty good.
I think João Pedro comes from obviously he came from Watford, who did play in the Prem, I think, during his tenure there, but then last season
Yeah.
we're in the Championship. So again, I mean, like you need, like you said, he scores a lot of penalties, but I think when you make this signing, and I think for Brighton, this was like a signing like this was like, hey, listen, we're trying to be serious. We need someone who's English, like veteran seasons, can score goals, and then to transition back into the Premier League into a new club, getting those penalties like a little bit of confidence. So I think making him the penalty kick taker, and obviously doing so with confidence, scoring twice in a game, because as silly as it sounds, going that second penalty, we've seen like Harry Kane take 2 penalties, and you know what I mean, and like miss one, and like it's still a mental game, and to have the capacity to do it is obviously great to see. If you're a Brighton fan, which being a
And before
neutral,
we
a lot
move
of us
on
might
from
be.
Brighton too,
Yeah,
before we move on from Brighton, I just wanted to put a little shout out to James Milner because I mean this guy,
yeah,
the last couple of games he's been balling. I mean, especially in the game against even if he was great. I mean, the guy's 37 years old. He's still got an engine. He's still going. He's still getting the job done. So I think it's pretty awesome to see that he's still kicking because I don't know, James Milner. He's kind of a meme, but he's definitely a solid player. I think he's somebody I enjoy watching. He's simple, but he's effective. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to him.
yeah. He's versatile too. I mean, he can play up and down the left side too. He can play through the middle. I mean, for a club I think like Brighton, where playing in Europe for the first time will introduce injuries and introduce tiredness, for a guy to be able to fill in key spots through rotation, through injury, I think is huge. Especially a guy like Milner who doesn't get tired, who
And
has a
with his
lot of season,
experience.
exactly a lot of experience, obviously winning a Premier League. So um, that is really good. And then conversely, talking about Tottenham, who are having problems, it's interesting because at the start of the season, it felt like the the divorce between Kane and Tottenham was looking great for both parties. Tottenham were scoring goals. Son was filling in great. Richarlison was finally getting a goal here and there. Kulusevski has been playing phenomenal. And Kane was obviously scoring in Bayern Munich. But now it seems like they can't find that many goals, or they struggle in games. And it's interesting to see how that has slightly declined.
Yeah. I mean, Spurs really, for me, they really blow hot and cold. I mean, one game they look fantastic and like one of the best teams in England, and then the next game they look kind of shit. And I
Yep.
mean, in their other game, they played Bournemouth, and who have been absolutely on fire lately. They've been smoking everybody. And in my opinion, Bournemouth were the better team. They probably deserved to win this game, but Tottenham just had the quality and the finishing to get the job done. Son and Richarlison, they're just difference makers, and
Right.
I think the loss of Harry Kane was probably the best thing for Richarlison because he's now finally been able to get a real spell in the team. I think Postecoglou really has a good impact on that too because his style of play definitely suits Richarlison more than the past managers he's been with at Spurs. So, I mean, it's good. I think he's on 7 goals now already this season, which is a lot more than some of the other players like we
Right.
were mentioning that have been getting bantered before. So,
Right.
and I think Richarlison's one of the guys that has been getting bantered in the past. So, I think it's pretty good for him and good for the confidence. And then something I wanted to ask you guys too is, I mean, if you look at the league table, Tottenham aren't really that far off the top right now, and I think if they can really start to figure out this Ange ball and really get comfortable with his system, and they once they get Romero and what's his name, Mickey Van de Ven back, I think they could be really seriously a problem in the title fight into the latter stretch of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not far off at all. I don't know
Yeah.
what you guys think about it, but I think they're definitely in it.
No, I think they look really good. The only thing I wanted to say is this is going to be an interesting period because with AFCON as well as the Asia games, Spurs are going to lose some key players. Bissouma, Papsar, Kyungmin Son, of course, the main man of the show.
Upstar's been
So
great.
I think we're going to really see now how good Ange Ball is because Tottenham were a team that were already also dealing with injuries. But for them to be able, for example, to plug in someone like Giovanni Lo Celso, who really doesn't get a lot of consistent time and playing that number 10 role, grabbing 2 assists, looking like a mainstay in the team, like he's been a part of it all along. I know he's popped up and had a couple starts. We're probably going to see more of Brennan Johnson, the likes of Brian Heel as well. And I wanted to shout out Richarlison. I mean, stop hating on Richarlison, dude. Richarlison's in a great vein of form. He looks like he might be Brazil's 9 going into Copa America. He's got 5 goals in the last 5 games. It's hard to argue with that. We'll see if the form continues, like I said, without Heung-min Son, because I think I could go play next to Heung-min Son and score. But yeah, Spurs are interesting. It seems like they got out of that little rut they were in November where they won no games. But they're looking pretty good.
Yeah,
it's good to see that they've bounced back.
Yeah, I agree. I think I actually think this game with Lo Celso, I don't understand. I'm missing probably why Kulusevski is not there. But it's a good thing that
Suspension, I think.
is a suspension. Well, if it is, that's the case. That means he comes back next game, right? But then losing Heung-min Son. So it's good to know that where Kulusevski has been so influential through that middle of the park, that right side, they can do without him, and then now he can then try to fill maybe the left side of Heung-min Son potentially. Like you guys were saying, that's a good look. But yeah, I definitely think I agree. I think these next couple of weeks, not even just for Tottenham, a lot of key clubs in this title race rely on AFCON players, rely on Asian players, and it will be interesting to see how they cope because there's a couple of big games. I think I just saw a Tottenham United game in there during that time period.
Yeah, they have to go to United. Yeah.
So I think
on the 14th.
I fully agree with what you just said. That this is going to be a very interesting period for a lot of teams, including Tottenham, obviously.
Yeah, let's transition to Saturday's window of games. There was 6 Premier League fixtures on Saturday. I don't want to talk about too many of them. There were some smaller storylines that I wanted to highlight, such as Wolves winning again. Man City, a routine victory at home against Sheffield. Aston Villa had some late luck. Looks like, I mean, they got the type of luck on their side that can help win you of a Premier League. So I thought it was cool to see them win late against Burnley. But I want to talk about Chelsea, to be honest, which is interesting because I'm not particularly a Chelsea enjoyer. But Cole Palmer is unbelievable. Yeah. I think Cole Palmer is ridiculously talented. What a ridiculous goal that he scored practically all on his own. I mean, Chelsea are starting to kind of climb up the table a little bit. I mean, they're beating the teams that you would have always expected them to beat, but they're 1 win away from jumping Newcastle, United, Brighton, teams who are, at least for right now, held in a higher light than Chelsea. So that was just something interesting I wanted to break up. I thought Cole Palmer was a standout performer from this past week of games. I feel bad for Luton because they played pretty good too. They almost came back and nicked a point from the game, but yeah, I just wanted to shout out Cole Palmer.
Yeah, I think it was a great game to watch in terms of both of these teams.
Yeah,
really.
It was exciting.
Both of these teams really, because we've seen, you know what, dude, all jokes aside, all the crap that probably some of us gave Luton in the group chat, some people, all across social media have been giving Luton. Going up into the Premier League, everybody thought they were going to go straight back down. We've mentioned this before. Mm-hmm. And for Chelsea to go to Luton and, play so dominantly, which should be somewhat expected, but also at the same time, other clubs have struggled. I mean, we saw Luton pick up some big points recently at home. Yep. It's good for a Chelsea fan to see this, and like you said, I think Cole Palmer, is fantastic. Another Man City product. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of what we talked about before. Man City's academy really pushing out some talent. And then finally, also some of these young kids that Chelsea has been buying for absorbent amount of money, proving a little bit of their worth, you know what I mean? Finally, the glue is settling on all these jigsaw pieces maybe a little bit, and we'll see how they continue. But then I also agree that I think Luton should walk away despite not getting any points. It's Chelsea. and they had the fight to play the 90 minutes and nearly come back. And you know what I mean, 3-0 down, and you had the fight in the 80th and 87th minute to get goals back from boys that we've talked about, Barkley, Adebayo. You know what I mean? You know, fucking youth. I mean, veteran Premier League talent. So I think it's interesting.
Right.
I think this game had a lot of story to tell.
And I think they won the most important game, Luton, of their last 5. If you look at their last 5 games, I mean, it was tough. They hosted Arsenal. They put 3 past them, unfortunate. They hosted City. They had the opening goal in the game and ended up losing. Obviously, they beat Newcastle at home, which you mentioned, but they won a relegation 6-pointer.
Yeah.
I think them going to Sheffield and winning that game really – I know it's January, but I think that kind of saved their season. They're a point behind Everton to get out of the relegation zone. I'm not sure that they will, but that was cool. It looks like they're gonna give it a good fight until the end. And that stadium, I mean, they're always gonna be behind that team when they're at home. So it was good to watch.
Yeah, and just to quickly throw,
road
yeah,
might be a fortress. But yeah, I wanted to just say, I think Chelsea would be relegation candidates if they didn't have Cole Palmer. I mean, he's got 12 goal contributions in the Premier League this season. He's been absolutely balling. And actually, I mean, I had a lot of questions when Pep let him go in the summer. I was kind of surprised by that. I think that was a move that kind of came out of nowhere and shocked me, that's for sure. So, I mean, it's good for him. He's been absolutely playing out of his mind, and I think every time I watch him play, he looks better and better. And I also just wanted to touch on Petrovic real quick because I thought he had. I mean, I know he lets in a couple goals, but I thought he had a pretty good game. He made a lot of impressive saves again, and he's not half bad with the ball at his feet either for a guy coming out of the MLS. So I think he might be one to watch out for. I think Robert Sanchez is definitely gonna have a fight on his job coming back from injury to get his number 1 place back. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think I think before we talk about the last game of Saturday, which I think will be an important one to speak on too, Luton, like you were just mentioning, they're 1 point off for the relegation zone, but they're a game at hand, and that game is to Burnley, who's another relegation scrap team who's on terrible form.
Is it? Wow, okay.
And
I
I
didn't see
think
that.
if I double check, I might have just messed up, but it might. Oh, it's away. Unfortunately, it's away, but they don't have a terrible away record, like you said. That 6-pointer at Sheffield, they know how to bag goals. You know what I mean? Like you mentioned that Arsenal and Man City game, dude. They lose both those games by a single goal to 2 title contenders without question, and then again lose by a single goal to Chelsea, who are not as much title contenders, but still a huge club. So it's interesting to see how they will bounce from that. And I think you know what you mentioned, Guardiola letting Cole Palmer go is interesting because I think Guardiola would be kicking himself because not necessarily that Cole Palmer walks into a City team, but losing KDB, who is nearly a guaranteed goal contribution player, and having a player who is practically getting a goal contribution at least every other game or so. Like that's someone who could have filled in during that injury. You know what I mean? And I think
I know.
I mean foresight is of course a regrettable thing, but
yeah,
you know what?
Especially to, I mean, not that Chelsea's competing with City this season, but like to sell him to a competitor too. I mean, I thought that was kind of crazy to me.
Right.
I actually do want to briefly speak about the Manchester City game, and you made me think about it because there actually is a player right now who should have been playing in the De Bruyne role all along and finally has been given the reins and has been thriving, and that's young Phil Foden, who I personally think, still to this day, I think he's one of the most talented footballers in the world right now. I'll say it. I think he's one of the most talented youngsters I've ever seen. He's still only 23 years old, but I remember when he was breaking into the City team for the first time, it was incredible. He has 3 goal contributions in his last 2 Premier League games. He helped them get back in the game against Everton, and he was great against Sheffield, providing 2 assists. So he's someone to watch out as well. I know a lot of England fans always wanted him to play through the middle. I don't like England, but I do like watching Phil Foden play. I'll say that much.
Yeah. It's been interesting that he hasn't been playing through that middle because that's where I think, like you were just mentioning, that's where he thrives. And I obviously know KDB gets that role, but
I just think he's a player that should never be on a leash. I just think he's a little put in a box when he's asked to go out wide and play like a Bernardo Silva role where he has to track back and come back over half field. I think he's been great recently, and they're getting De Bruyne back pretty soon. I know they're saying he's been in training. He should be making his
in the squad.
Yeah, he should be starting relatively soon. So I'm not going to say I can't it's weird to say that Man City are a dark horse right now, but they were a decent amount of points off first place. A lot of people just automatically assume that because they're a machine that they're going to be right back in the race. Personally, they are still my pick to win the Premier League. We'll make a video about predictions later in the weeks. Stay tuned. But enough on that game. I think we should transition to the other half of Manchester because they had another shocker again. And it just makes no sense. I think this United team make no sense. Every time I watch them play, I mean, they went to Anfield and drew. They look decent. Things are, okay, things are looking up. They go to West Ham, smashed. They go 2-0 down to Villa at home, win the game. Makes zero sense. Nobody understands how they did it. We all thought that they sucked. I know you guys talked about it at halftime, and G kind of had to eat it because, he was kind of shitting on Ten Hag. I was lucky because I would have been eating it too because I was also shitting on Ten Hag, but I wasn't a part of the podcast. But it's just an interesting time. I don't know. I don't know. I just think this is what happens when you lack a real team character and identity in moments that are hard. It's tough. I mean, they conceded the first goal against Forest, and even when they scored, they really didn't look like they were going to hold on to it, and they didn't. I mean, they went right up the field on a counterattack. Forrest did, and grabbed the goal. Anthony Elanga must feel on top of the world. He had a man of the match performance. He had the assist for the goal to beat United, who he would probably be playing because Anthony stinks. But I don't know. I think I just think United make no sense. I don't even know how to analyze them, to be honest, because are they good? Are they bad? I don't even think anybody in the backroom staff knows, or Ten Hag himself. We'll see.
I think, for me, like you said, there's no way to read this United team.
Yeah.
I mean, the only goal they score in this game is really all down to the fact that Matt Turner can't kick the fucking ball straight. Let's be serious here. They really didn't create many clear cut chances at all. And the goals they conceded, it's the same goal twice practically. Like they both come down the right side. Ball gets played into the middle, and it's an easy finish. It's simple soccer at the end of the day, and it's United fail to get the simple things done every single game. It feels like, and I know I shit on him every week, but I have to say that's down to Ten Hag. That's down to coaching. That is down to the fact that he doesn't keep a consistent, solid 11 every week. He's always chopping and changing. So I just think it's. I know I keep saying it, and I'm probably over exaggerating when I say sack him at halftime and all this shit. But at some point, I know some people say they got to stick with him. Some people want him to go, but in my opinion, he's got to be out of the door. I think enough's enough. If I was a United fan, I don't even think I'd be watching him anymore. I think I would just be avoiding it at this point.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
go ahead.
You go, Nate.
Just quickly, I will say shout out Matt Turner, being New England boys and Americans.
Yes.
I think it's pretty dope that he
good weekend.
Pretty sick that he came from Revolution to Arsenal to Nottingham. But besides the point, I fully agree. I think United are in a weird state right now, and I'll admit, I'm the one that sits there and I say sack him, even though I fully well know, I from a realistic neutral who loves the game, who would love to be a manager myself if that was ever possible. But I know that it's not always the manager's fault, and you got to stick with him. You got to give him the chance to have a game plan. But I also personally, just from viewing the way this guy manages a game, how he sets up tactics, how he picks players, and how he deals with stress, because a lot of these clubs, every time we talk about a big club, they're going through injuries too. It's not just a United problem. You know what I mean? It's every club. And the way he deals with it, I think, is piss poor and is not what United need. United needs someone who's going to play an identity in the football aspect, and then pick a captain, and then show discipline. I mean, everybody talked about, look at Ten Hag showing discipline to Ronaldo. Dude, Ronaldo was the last time they were competing for a Champions League knockout phase. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I don't think that's the problem. He kicks out De Gea, gets Onana because that's his preferred ball-playing keeper. Onana, obviously, dog shit most of the time. It's just it doesn't feel like he's making the right decisions. He's not consistent with discipline. He's not consistent with how he picks his lineup. How are they ever going to mesh and gel? All these new players, academy players, or signings, they're not going to work together if they're not playing at the same time. And I don't think he's the man for the job. Not necessarily do I think the solution to a club's problem is to sack a manager, but it just doesn't feel like he's the guy. Find someone else and stick with it, I think.
And I'll continue with some more negative thoughts about United, but I actually have some positives too. But the one thing I wanted to say that I think kind of is annoying to watch, and I'm not even a United fan, is like, you bring up, other teams that have injuries, Nate, and you're completely right. But if I look to a team like Spurs, who plug and play these players and don't really see a dip in performance levels, it's a shame that Ten Hag's been in the job now for a season and a half and is yet to do that. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about the state of United, because when there's a set philosophy that everyone is bought into and everyone is on the same exact page, you can do things like that. You become a machine, and they're far from it. They're missing some gears. They're missing parts. It was cool to see Ahmad come off the bench, another youngster. But again, like, there's so much wrong with the club that somebody like Ahmad, as young and talented as he might be, is not going to solve anything. Someone like Kabi Mino, as good as his individual performances might be, they're just not going to solve anything yet. But with that being said, I think there are some good positives, because although they're in a bit of a rut, they're able to give youngsters like Minu, maybe Ahmad now is going to catch a star or keep coming off the bench. These are valuable minutes for these kids. And another youngster who recently seems to have leveled up again is Garnacho. He had another goal contribution. It was cool to see Rashford start and get a goal. So we'll see. I think this is a really tough moment for them. But hopefully they'll use this later on in their United careers, or just careers in general, and learn from it. But I just don't even know what to expect. I mean, United are in such a weird place. I mean, if they went to Wigan and lost in the FA Cup, I'm not sure I'd be surprised. The game's probably going to go to penalties, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But that's about all I have to say on United for now.
Kind of to wrap it up, unless G has a final thought, I think it's because, like you said, we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, is that United have these flashes, these moments, and as a United fan, I think you should take those moments, right, and like the Villa game, and be like, okay, our team can play, right, and they can play ball, and there are moments of brilliance where, maybe we could see a United rebuild. But I think they're dropping the ball as a club, and I think personally, it's not so much Ten Hag's fault as much as I just said to sack him. As much as I think it's an upper echelons of the club. I know they just got new 25% stake or whatever it might be from someone who actually might care. But I think it's the Glazers that have a problem here, realistically. And I think it sucks, because if you look at the Premier League over the last couple seasons, outside of that City dominance, there's a lot of clubs in the Premier League that are going through rebuilds. So if this was ever a time for United to regain their dominance, to try a rebuild and to really try to get their step back in, because other teams are also kind of crap in the bed. Because we'll get to Liverpool, they're sitting at the top, but they got 6 draws. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get there.
Yeah. And you made me think of them right away when you said that as well.
Yeah. So like, they're far off the top now in terms of table size, but they shouldn't be, and they're missing. They're dropping a huge ball, I think, in terms of club growth and rebuild. And like I said, I think there are moments to be proud of, but other times I'd be like we are, baffled and just unsure.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to touch on before we leave this game was, like you said, with that injection of the 25% stake from Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Ineos group, it is going to be very interesting to see where they go from here, because as far as I've been aware of and what I've read, they're taking over all the football operations of the club. The Glazers are going to have nothing to do with that anymore. And I don't even think they've really met with Ten Hag yet and had like real discussions about the future of the club and where things are going to go from here. And I think probably even Ten Hag's future as it stands right now. So I think these next couple weeks, especially, and considering Onana's another player that they're going to lose to AFCON, they're going to have to play a goalie who's never even played in their team before. So it's going to be really, really. I think United's another one. It's going to be really interesting to see where they go from here the next few weeks, and to see what changes this new stake in Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his team are going to make.
Yeah, I think it definitely could get worse. And you bring up the goalkeeper situation too. I mean, for a back line who already has next to no confidence. And I just want to remind everybody of United's next game. So now they have an extra game to play. They have to go to Wigan. Should they win? Yeah, but these days, who knows? Then they host Spurs. They go to Wolves, who, of course, have been on fire. They host West Ham, who they already lost to. And then they go to Villa. And then they go to Luton. I mean, and Luton have been scoring goals for fun. They might get only 4 or 5 points out of these next 5-6 Premier League games. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're gonna need to buy players. I think. I kind of wish Patrick was here because I would love to ask him, um, if like what he thinks about when they're fully fit and have a full squad. I'm sure the performances would improve, but until they get 80% of their players fit, I just don't see them building anything consistent or an identity. So it's just a shame. But let's go to Liverpool now. They had a great result to Newcastle. We saw Salah at his best for most of the game. The penalty he missed, it is what it is. Um, but they've been great, and yeah, you made me think of them, Nate. I mean, they're a team who were crap last season for
Yep.
Liverpool standards. Obviously, they're in the Europa League. They were finished outside the top four. Not a lot of people thought that. And it kind of reminds me of the season when they lost Van Dijk and came like sixth or seventh, and then rebounded back and had a really good title fight. They seem to be doing it again. They're in first place right now. They have a 3-point gap. I know City have a game at hand, but even if they win, they'll still have a 2-point gap. But I was thoroughly impressed with Liverpool. Anfield was rocking. I know Patrick likes to say that they're quiet, but no, it was really good. I thought they showed a lot of fight. I think they showed why they're in first place. I mean, Newcastle have been in bad form too, but they're a good team as well. Um, and there were some shaky moments. The game was tied at one point, and Liverpool showed their dominance. They flexed their muscles. They looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Salah obviously back to what we talked about penalties. Another testament to our boy. Go a little backtrack a little bit to João Pedro, who scored 2. Salah misses one, but then goes on to score another one. So obviously we know that he has a great talent under his belt. But besides that, irrelevant. I think it's interesting. So like you hinted at, Ange, we will be doing a little mid-season review. And something I want to highlight later in more detail is the fact that, dude, this Premier League title race is very close because I think the bigger clubs are dropping at key points. I mean, you see Liverpool have 6 draws compared to the next couple who are at 3 and 4. And a draw is when you look at an individual game, you're like, all right, at least they got a point, but that's also dropping 2 points. You know what I mean? Like, and you put a couple of those 2 points on the win side. And now you're 7, 8, 9 points clear at the top of the table. And it's interesting. It just feels like no team is fully grasping their opportunities. We talked about Villa dropping the ball when they had an opportunity to go top of the table. And like we all know, Man City love a second half of the season. And that's why I would also agree to back you on City potentially going back up. But I do think Liverpool had a great game. I think Newcastle had a good game too. I think they're still struggling to find their balance of Europe and Prem. Obviously, they're out of Europe now, so we'll see how they recover from that a little bit after this little winter break. But I think this was a great game to solidify why Liverpool at the top of the table, but also another because conceding 2 goals at Anfield is another reason why they may also drop the ball on the title as we move on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, overall, like you said, it's a great performance from Liverpool. In my opinion, I thought it was kind of like a classic Liverpool. I mean, I think for me, my main takeaway from this game especially is like Liverpool kind of feel like they're starting to get that relentlessness that they've had in the past couple of seasons on their clock. Like remember we know from like that classic Firmino, Mane, Salah, where they were attacking nonstop from 90 minutes. They'd be up 3-4 goals in the 90th minute. They wouldn't go to the corner. They'd be going for goals. And it feels like that team is starting to get that again. And I think it seems like as they start to play more and more games together, they're just becoming more and more comfortable. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with them with McAllister coming back. I think that's going to add a big difference to their midfield, who's already playing fantastic. I know they're going to lose Salah to the AFCON, but I think they're not going to have an issue. I mean, Jota's back from injury. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat at all. Trent has been playing absolutely out of his mind lately. He was, I mean, he was almost visited by the ghost of Roberto Carlos past in that game. I don't know if you guys saw that shot he hit.
Crazy goal,
unbelievable. So if that went in, that would have been like probably one of the best goals I've ever seen in my life live ever.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one of the few teams who are going to lose something really valuable to their team over the next couple of weeks, and they're probably not going to be affected by it at all.
Not as much as the other teams, I agree. And you bring up the relentlessness as well. Liverpool were a machine for a couple seasons. I want to ask you guys a question. Do you guys know when the last time Liverpool lost in the Premier League was?
lost in the Premier League
Hmm.
at home or in general? Sorry.
Just in general this season.
That's a
I
great question.
I actually don't. I know. I was just looking at their table when I looked at talking about the draws. They only have once, so I feel like you're gonna tell me some
It was
crazy stuff.
it was match day 1
Match day
against
one.
Spurs. They're 19 games unbeaten,
Wow.
and I further looked into it because I think ties kind of tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the teams that they've tied, I mean,
Mhm.
they didn't tie shit teams. I mean, they tied away to Brighton.
Okay.
I know that they didn't. I know I said they didn't tie shit teams, but they tied away to Luton, away stuff. But then it was Man City, United, and Arsenal as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not losing in the big games, and they're
Right.
winning They're winning against the teams that you would expect them to win. They have all the makings of a team that can win the title. I think they're in first place deservedly, and we'll see how they kick on. But I agree, this was a classic Klopp Liverpool. We're gonna absolutely choke you out until you can't breathe, and then we'll put four past you and we'll win the game. I thought they were great.
It
Yeah.
feels like they're getting that style of play back
Hmm.
that they kind of lost since bringing in these new players, and it feels like that Liverpool relentlessness is definitely back. I think.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
interesting to me too. I just want to say one more quick thing about Liverpool.
yeah.
Like, Klopp's obviously been in the job for years now. There's no questioning
Right.
how good of a tactician he is and his ability to build a culture. You brought up the front three, classic Salah, Firmino, Mane, Gianluca. I think what's interesting is there's really not a set starting three, and I think that's even scarier. Like, I think
Mhm.
Yeah.
Liverpool is actually becoming really plug and play because, especially last season, I mean, they were thin. I mean, they maybe had 13, 14 guys that they could realistically rely on, and that were top Premier League quality players. I think that's why you saw a dip in form. But like Nate said as well, like the more or I don't remember if it was Nate. I think it might have been John Luca, but whoever just made the point a couple minutes ago about the more and more they play games together, the better they look. I
Mhm.
think that is true. I think Endo has looked phenomenal. I thought he was great. He was first to almost every 50-50 ball in the midfield. He made it really tough on Bruno to dictate almost anything. So yeah, I think they look great.
Yeah, I think they're. It's funny because it feels like Liverpool, like to my recent memory, their transfer windows are always like they buy one position a couple times. Like
Right.
this transfer window specifically, they bought like 3 or 4 like essentially central midfielders,
Right.
and then before they had bought a bunch of forwards. Then like I mentioned it last pod that they had like 2 or 3 lines of those 3 forwards, but it didn't feel like
They
they
really
all
do.
clicked. They didn't feel like they all clicked as well until just like you just
Right.
said this season. Now Jota will come in as an absolute like unit when he needs to be. You have Gakpo, who's a talent, and then now in the midfield you have McAllister who can come off the bench. Obviously, just winning a World Cup. Gravenberg, who was a great signing for, I thought was a great signing for Bayern. Never really got a chance, but now at Liverpool. And then, like you said, Endo's playing great in that role, and it's insane. That midfield, I think, is really good. And I think, yeah, this club is insane. And I'm glad you brought up the draws, by the way, because I was just looking at it from a numbers point of view, and obviously they tell a story when you really look at it. And we
Right.
joked about the Luton thing, but Luton away we've seen is tough.
Downworth Road is a fortress.
It is. It is. It's a small, tiny one, but it holds strong. And I think we already mentioned the Brighton West Ham tie that closed out our Premier League games. So I think overall, we obviously mentioned a lot of stories being told this weekend. A lot of just summing up kind of how this half of the season went, and how it might look these next couple weeks. But you Italians can lead the conversation as we move to Italy, who also had round 19 of their fixtures.
Yeah. What game do you want to start with, John? What caught your eye this weekend in the Serie A?
Well, I think the first game I'd like to talk about is probably Fiorentina. I think they got a pretty big result. I think if you look at that race in the top four in Italy, or at least for fourth place in Italy, it's very, very tight between about a handful of teams, 4 or 5 altogether. And I think the teams that are going to be most consistent and the one that is able to put the most organized and consistent form of a run of games together, that's going to be the team that makes fourth place. And Fiorentina is the one that made the argument for it this weekend. They're the one that came away with a pretty big result. It's a 1-0 win, but it was solid. And I think Fiorentina, they kind of get overlooked a little bit, but I really rate Vincenzo Italiano. He's a great coach. He's got great tactics, and you can tell his team is well drilled. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and they have a lot of sneaky little good players that can get a result and get the job done for them. So I think they're definitely one to watch out for in that race for Europe.
You're giving your brother a lot
Yeah.
of credit there, saying that everybody's racing for fourth and Milan's hit third. But I'll let Ange keep going. That's a lot of gas in
Well,
that tank.
yeah. To continue with the top four race talk, I know this game happened. When did it happen? When was the Udinese Bologna game? Was that on the same day?
Saturday, the day after.
Well, right. It wasn't on the same day as Friday, but that was a big result in the race as well. They went to Udinese. Bologna did and got absolutely smashed. A result that I don't think anybody saw coming. Only Udinese's second win of the season. Figures they come against my Milan, and now Bologna. But yeah, that was a huge result. Bologna dropping out of the top four. Fiorentina taking full advantage and piggybacking them. I thought that was interesting. There was a couple interesting draws in the Serie A this weekend. Napoli dropping points, Inter dropping points. Inter kind of losing their foothold in the title race. That was another unexpected result away to Genoa for them to only get one goal out of the game. They were without the talisman, Lautaro Martinez, in this game. I think he kind of showed his importance. He's picked up a little injury. We'll see if it lingers and how much it affects their performances going forward. But I don't really have too much else to say.
Before
about
you move on
that
from that game, I watched this game, the Genoa Inter game. I actually think Inter should have lost this game, to be quite honest with you. Genoa were fantastic.
Right.
The fans were brilliant. Genoa, obviously, Sampdoria is not in the Serie A anymore, so they don't have a real true derby. So when they play the Milan teams, that's the derby for their fans.
Yes.
And the fans were unbelievable. They had to stop the game because there was so much fog from the smoke for like 15 minutes because nobody could see. And Genoa, the fans willed them on the whole game. I mean, Genoa were brilliant. They were creating all the best chances. Rod Dragusin,
the man of the hour in Genoa right now.
If he doesn't get a move away from Genoa, I'll be shocked because he's been brilliant for them this season. I really like to see him come to Roma, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see what happens with him. But I think Genoa have been great this season. They're another good team. Gilardino is their coach, another former player turned manager that's starting to find his feet and really get the job done. So we'll see where they go. I thought Albert Gudmundsson, who I've talked about before, had another great game for them. And yeah, it was a well-deserved point. If not, they should have got 3 out of it because I thought Genoa were brilliant in this game.
Yeah, it was a nice result to see Inter dropping point.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just came off, if not last pod, the pod before, about how good we thought that Marcus Thuram Lautaro matchup was, and obviously now they missed one and they didn't play as well. I wanted to repeat the Radu Dragusin because unfortunately my conditions let John lag out a little bit there, and I wanted to make sure that we all got the shout out that he got the shout out that he deserved. But yeah, it's interesting because now 2 points, which might maybe lay up to the Juve game, which brings us back to one of the last times we had the privilege of having Angelo here. He mentioned how the old lady's back. You know what I mean? And I think Juve look dangerous.
Yes, they are.
They're playing that infamous 3-back, but it's different. I think, right? I think it's more forward-minded than it probably used to be. I think it used to be that typical Italian defensive football that people love to talk about so much. And I think it's a little bit more aggressive up front. I think those fullbacks are more attacking than they used to be. And then Vlahovic is obviously a huge threat, both on the assists and the goals. But yeah, tell me how you guys feel about that. And G, obviously you have a stake in that Roma game.
Yeah, so for me, I think I can't really ask for too much more from the performance for Roma. I mean, Dybala's coming back off an injury. I really honestly wasn't even expecting him to start. I thought he was going to come off the bench. I thought it was a little rushed to bring him back, and I didn't think he looked at 100%. And like I've said time and time again, I mean, our performances are very much reliant on how far he can take us. And in this game, he couldn't take us far enough. And other than that, I mean, there's really not much else to say. I mean, it's the story of our season. I just think we're just not there. We just haven't been, and I don't know. There's performances where I see things that I really like when we beat Napoli 2-0 last week, and then I see this week, and I'm like, why can't we play like that this week? I just don't understand. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think Juve, in my opinion, is no like this Juve on paper at least. This Juve side is no better than the Napoli side that we just beat. I know Napoli's not in the greatest run of form right now, but I think that we should be going into every game with that type of attitude, like we're better than everybody else. We're gonna go in and we're gonna beat everybody to 50-50 balls, and we're gonna play hard and we're gonna be right on the ball right away. I just don't see that. Like, I don't. When we played against Napoli, every time Osimhen got the ball, every time Politano got the ball, every time their danger man got the ball, Mancini or Cristante or one of the defenders was right there instantly. They couldn't even take half a step with the ball without somebody being there to make a tackle or put a body on them. But in this game, we're back to standing off and allowing space and letting Juve do what they want if they wanted to. And it's just I just have to ask questions about why that's happening. I just don't. I can't answer it. I'd like Mourinho to answer it, but he doesn't answer it. So I just don't know what's going on. I don't know what you thought about it, Ange, but I don't know. It was just a little aggravating for me to watch.
Yeah, quickly
Well, I can answer it.
Yeah, I wanted to add like kind
Well,
of a
yeah.
layer to that. Your analysis of his question is because I was wanting to have both of you here to have this conversation from two Italian point of views. I love Jose Mourinho, right? I think he's a great manager, and I look at this team on paper and it doesn't seem that good, and just from just like a talent point of view, right?
There's your answer, John.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, and I've been saying that to G, and I don't want to keep disrespecting him, and but I just don't think that team is that good. Now I was hoping to get both of your back and forth opinions about. We can start with Ange about how just that team's quality isn't there, and whether that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting because I feel like in the big games, the way the team sets up is like a lot of what Gianluca said. We're going to dump the ball into Dybala's feet and see what he can do. Lukaku was well marshaled in this game. I mean, if you look at the stats, he had 26 touches, only 2 touches in the opposition box. He had 1 shot from about 30 yards that was really out of position. I remember it well when it
Yeah,
happened.
he was in Bremer's pocket all game.
I think Roma just don't have the quality right now. I think their midfield 3 is below mid-table at best, if I'm going to be really honest. I don't know what Gianluca feels about it. Yeah, I don't know. Roma, I don't know. You never expect him to win the big games. I remember I had a running joke with Gianluca where I think for like a couple seasons in a row, Roma did not have 1 win.
Beating Napoli last week was the first time we beat a top 6 side under Mourinho. So
yeah, I mean that tells you absolutely everything you need to know about Roma. And I guess we have to transition to Juventus. I know we're not the biggest Juventus fans, but credit where it's due. It was an Allegri ball masterclass again. His favorite result: grab a goal, scrappy goal. It was a nice flick from Vlahovic, who seems to be coming into a bit of form. He was getting a lot of criticism. He's kind of sucked ever since he compared himself to Haaland. I don't know why he ever did that, but he's looked pretty good. This Juventus team is an interesting Juventus. I know Nate said it before. They do play their traditional 3-back, but there's no real like talisman right now, and you're not sure where the goals are going to come from. And then they win, and everyone's like, "Whoa, shit!" I mean, here we go again. But yeah, it was again just like the Napoli game that they played a couple weeks ago, a classic 1-0 win. Once Juventus got the goal, it was very boring. You never really thought their opponent was going to get back into the game. And that's exactly how it went. Roma dropped to 7th place in the table. So, I don't know. It's not looking too hot for them. But Juventus capitalized on Inter's mistakes with their draw. So, it's a 2-point title race in Italy. I think it really became a 2-horse race a couple weeks ago. But it's cool to see that I think it might be closer than we thought. And I actually think Juventus, I mean, they're going to play Inter again whenever that game is. That might decide it. Because it doesn't look like either of those teams want to lose games right now. So we'll see. They both only have 1 loss on the season. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think just before we leave Roma, like I've been saying, I just don't think we're there. I've been saying it all along, and we don't have the quality. You guys are 100% right. I think we need a new goalkeeper. Personally, I think Rui Patricio is well past it, and you see it on the goal we concede. I think he needs to do much better there. He should never be getting beat by Rabiot at his near post, especially in the way that he did. So, I mean, like you could have fucking drove a bus through the gap he left at the near post for all I thought about it. But
Right.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, we really miss Smalling. He's just the player you don't replace defensively. He wins everything in the air, and that's just not something we're going to replace. I think Llorente's done well filling in for him there in the middle, but like I said, it's just not something you can do there. Our midfield, not great, as you said, awful. Pellegrini has been non-existent. He showed up out of nowhere last week off the bench, and again, he's non-existent this week. So it's
Yeah.
just
Not
like,
even getting starts either at the
yeah,
moment.
it's just question marks all around for me. I mean, Pellegrini's our club captain, and he doesn't start. He doesn't do anything for us.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I want to say it's a rebuild season, but it's like, I don't know where the fuck we're going season or what we're doing season for me. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that just leaves you, Ange, to speak on how you felt this weekend.
Oh yeah, well, Milan have played a couple games since the last time we recorded. We had a Serie A game, we had a Coppa Italia game. Well, we might touch on the Coppa Italia later, but I'm going to speak about Milan Sassuolo. Now, this was the match that was reportedly for Pioli's job. I know there's been a lot of shit made about Pioli in this season and some of the lackluster Milan performances. A lot of people were annoyed with us going away and conceding twice to Salernitana and drawing. So this was reportedly the game that if we lost, he'd be out. So of course we won. We played like Madrid, and we won the game. It was cool. Pulisic popping up. I know he was a signing that I wasn't really crazy about him. I'm not gonna lie because I thought we could attract more quality wingers than Christian Pulisic, but he's been great. I can't say enough about the guy. He always runs hard. He leads. By example, he scored a good goal out of nothing. He ran hard. It was kind of a scrappy goal, but it's the type of goals that you need when you're kind of struggling. I was a little surprised that Berardi didn't score a hat trick. We're his favorite opponent. He loves playing in the San Siro. He seems to always score against the Milan clubs, Inter included. But Sassuolo were really, really bad. They haven't won a game in ages. I know their coach Dionisi is on the hot seat. They have a couple really, really good talents, some players that I wouldn't like seeing Milan go after, to be quite honest. But the only game that Sassuolo has won since October was a 4-3 win away to Empoli. Empoli, who are in 19th. They're in terrible form, and it continued again. So I was actually kind of worried going into the game, just given the history between Milan and Sassuolo. It's actually the first time a Pioli-managed Milan team has beaten Sassuolo.
Wow.
Make of that what you will. So it was nice to see us get a 1-0 result. But I think it was to be expected. We're Milan. We're in the top three. We should be beating Sassuolo at home. So there wasn't really any impressive performances from the game. I don't know if you caught the game, John, but I didn't really have much else to say.
Yeah, I did. It was an expected result for me. Like you said, I thought Milan should always win the game, but yeah, you always have to think about it when Milan plays Sassuolo. Berardi loves to pop up
Right.
against Milan and Inter when he plays at the San Siro, especially. He always seems to pull something special out of his bag of tricks. So it was kind of disappointing, I would say, to see him and Sassuolo as a whole really show up the way they did. I mean, they really didn't offer
Yeah.
any game, in my opinion, at all.
Yeah, I'm glad we won, but as a Serie A fan, it's a little sad. If I'm going to highlight a Milan player performance, I thought Reinders was great. He seems to be back in the form. When we first bought him in August, and he started, I think he might have the most minutes played for Milan this season. He's played in almost every game. He hit the ground running, and then he kind of dipped. He looks to be back to his best. And it was nice to see Benacer come back. He's my favorite Milan player right now. He grabbed a little assist. He had a nice little run for the goal. It sucks because we're going to lose him to AFCON immediately now. He's already, I think, training with the Algeria team. So that's too bad. I'll be waiting for him to come back. But it was cool to see him play. Teo Hernandez was great at the back. He's been a makeshift center back. So it's been cool to see how he's been able to lead and captain this team. But that was about it. I think we're in a decent run of form. Was there anything that you wanted to say about the Serie A, Nate, or do you want to move?
So
Or
I
Patrick,
would.
for that matter.
I did want to before throwing the bone to see if Patrick has any questions for us, but I wanted to wonder, just because it's a little bit lighter on the Serie A, right? So the conversation is a little shorter. So I'll take the opportunity to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on. You kind of just briefly touched on a couple players, but your thoughts on Milan since in your absence. We've talked about them a bit here and there, but I think they've only lost one game since the last time you've been around, which I think was that Atalanta game, if I recall.
Atalanta, yeah.
Um, and I mean, just from like a sheer numbers point of view, Milan getting the points that they need to
Mm.
get. They drop at Salernitana, but speaking of what's his name, Kandreva picking up points. We have I'm sorry, Berardi usually popping off. We had Kandreva pop off against Milan
Yes.
in the big games like he
Yeah.
always does. How do you think the team is faring? There are a couple of injuries, like you said. Hernandez is filling in that center back position, so
Hmm.
you're light in the middle. Um, I did make a comment that I knew you didn't like Pulisic as like a sort of a marquee signing of the summer, and yet
Right.
he's living up to it a bit. So how do you feel just as Milan in general before we move on?
Well, to be honest, I've been quite pleased. I think ever since we bounced Newcastle from the Champions League, we've looked solid. I mean, with the injuries that we had, like it could definitely be a lot worse. Um, it's been really fun to watch some of these teenagers play, like literal teenagers. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, some of them, it looks like they've been a part of the squad for years, and it's actually pretty cool because the more the years have gone on, the more I've heard these names of like Giancarlo Simic, Shaka
Yep.
Traore, who got his first goal for Milan, first start in the cup just yesterday. We had Bartesaghi, who's been being a deputy kind of to Teo Hernandez. We saw Kevin Zeroli come off the bench in this game against Sassuolo. It's been really fun. If you read Twitter, you would think we've lost the last 6 games. A lot of people have been making a lot of Pioli's like choices, and a lot of people have been dogging on Calabria, but I think he's been a consummate professional. I think he's been the best captain I've seen Milan have for a while. Um, the only other thing I wanted to say was after this match, the Sassuolo game, Leao was booed um,
Really?
when he got subbed off, and I'm just like, there's no Milan without this guy, and I don't know. Scored this Serie A goal since September, so like I get it, but he's been great in Europe. He's been great in the cup games. He actually also scored yesterday against Cagliari. So that was a little interesting to me that he was booed. I don't think that was really fair. And the other thing people were trying to blow up was as soon as the final whistle blew, Pioli went to the locker room while the fans went over, or while the players went over and greeted the fans. Florenzi gave this little kind of pep talk at like half field with the whole squad. It was cool to see. Personally, I like when they do that. I hope it wasn't just like for show, because I like to think they actually talk about important shit. But it shows how much they care. Like, I think we could have, like you were saying, we could have packed it up when we saw Tomori be out for 2 months and some other key injuries. But we seem to be in good form. I mean, these kids can play. They're hungry. Um, I won't touch on the Coppa Italia game too much, but I think it ties in well, so I will just talk about it briefly. Because there was 3 players who were handed their first ever start for Milan in this game. Shaka Traore, Giancarlo Simic, and young Alejandro Jimenez, who's another fullback from Real Madrid. We know how good the fullback we have from Real Madrid has turned out. It was cool to see them play, get minutes. They put in great performances, like standout performances, in my opinion. I know they played a Cagliari B team, but it's cool to see the depth of our squad. I think it's better than we thought it was. Luka Jovic had a brace in this game against Cagliari. He's been tremendous off the bench. He's been a huge help. I think he's had something like 5 goals in only like 300 minutes. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind. He's averaging like a goal every 45 minutes. He hasn't started too many games, but I think he's really making a case to play over Giroud. I kind of would play him over Giroud, to be honest, at this point, because I haven't been too convinced with Giroud's play. Um, but no, I like seeing the young kids get a chance. Yassin Adli was great in the game against Cagliari. We saw Luca Romero play. He was terrible. He was absolutely bullied. But I think we're showing our the depth of our squad, and we're going to need it if we're going to make a Europa League run. I think it'd be a great chance for Pioli to keep playing some of these young guys, especially while we have some key players out. Um, but it's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with the state of Milan. That was an interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it, but when I sit here and analyze the last couple games, it definitely could be worse. It's not like we've played any big teams, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you real quick about Adley. I know he
Mm.
he kind of made a name for himself in the team. Then he fell out again, and now, I mean, he got some minutes against Sassuolo. He started in the cup. So, I mean, what's going on with him lately? Because for me personally, I mean, I enjoy watching him play. I think he's very unique in
Unbelievable.
the way that he plays, and he's one of a kind. So,
I forgot.
And
I
I
would
want
like
to
to see him
say,
do something.
and I want to say too, to put you a bit on the spot before you answer how you feel about him, because you've been his biggest fan and calling him the
I know.
next
I've been dying
Zidane.
for him to play.
Be calling him the next Zidane regen. So I mean, yeah, he's pretty good, but I'll let you go from there. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of how much you hype him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little dancer with the ball at his feet, and I feel like he just sees everything. I mean, he should have had a brilliant assist to Jovic. I don't know if you saw it,
I
Gianluca,
did
but
see that.
the
Yeah.
way he just sidestepped around whoever that poor guy was in Cagliari's midfield, he made a great dynamic run, played a beautiful weighted pass into Jovic onto his left foot. He couldn't convert the chance. At least somebody to look out for. I think he's going to be a starter in these Europa League games, and I think him starting in this game put the nail in the coffin for Krunic in this team, who at the beginning of the season – I love Rade Krunic. I think I'll be in debt to Rade Krunic for life. I think he was a great professional. He played every position almost on the field that Pioli's ever asked him to play. He's rumored to catch a move to Fenerbahce. But it was cool. I think Adley's going to get a lot of minutes, actually, especially Benacer going to AFCON. He's probably next man off the bench, especially with Yunus Musa being hurt further a little while longer. So we'll see. It just goes back to my other point where, like, I think we have a really good squad, and I think Pioli needs to trust that and lean on that in the moments where we don't have a spark. I mean, there's kids that are so hungry to play, and I think we need to use that and lean into that more. But I mean, that's enough about Milan. I feel like I'm going to jinx them now, and we'll lose to Roma in one of our next games. That would suck.
I will guess I'll take this opportunity to cover where I'm actually at right now, the Portuguese league. A lot of kind of straightforwardness this weekend in terms of who won what games. Our top four, mainstays that we talk about the most, Benfica, Porto, Braga, and Sporting, all got 3 points this weekend. I think Benfica had a great game against Famalicão. Arthur Cabral, who has been coming under a lot of scrutiny, scored there, pretty good goal. Rafa Silva had a fantastic game. He's been their key player. I think it's really the games that he doesn't play as well as when we see a lot of Benfica struggling, because it honestly feels like with their issues going forward, despite Artur Cabral scoring in this game, if he doesn't get on the score sheet or if he doesn't get a direct goal contribution, it feels like they can't do anything. Unfortunately, despite how talented they are on paper and how good of a transfer window I think they had. But it feels like that back line that is a little bit makeshift in terms of fullbacks is really settling in together, which again, we will jump back to Pat a little later, give him a chance to talk about United. I think it's interesting to look at a club that is giving a chance a same back line to repeatedly play despite injury issues and how well they eventually mesh. I mean, Moratu, who's been coming in a lot of scrutiny from Jay, who's on here, my cousin who talks to me, actually is starting to play very well in that left back position, I think. And then Arsenez is just a fantastic, versatile player, so he always fills in really well. So I think Benfica are a really good team. Personally worried about them. Of course, as it comes to that title race, we are still a point ahead. But I think it will come down to the wire, and I'm worried about it, but we will stay true. Porto got a pretty simple, straightforward 3 points. They're not. I don't think they're really that good, which I think shows because they only won 1-0 against the last place team in the league.
Right.
I'll pause there if you guys have any questions about Benfica or Porto before I move on to Sporting, which I'll probably dive into a bit.
No, it's fine. We can move to Sporting. I actually caught some of the game. I was laying on my couch that night and thumbing through the channels. I caught most of the game. I started watching like 10 minutes before Gyökeres scored a brilliant goal, to be honest. That was a tough finish.
Yeah.
There's a couple players in that Sporting team that I think don't get a lot of credit. I particularly get impressed when I watch guys like Pedro Gonçalves play. He had a great assist.
Mm-hmm.
And their center backs are legit. I mean, there's a real I see why a lot of these European clubs are chasing after Diomande. I know Ignacio didn't play in the match, but they look good. I was pretty impressed with Sporting.
Yeah, speaking of the center back position, I don't think they've played the three of them in the same game, but I'd be interesting to watch them happen if it was a lower side since, like I said, talking chemistry, they haven't played the three together. So if it's a weaker team, I'd like to see them play. Is Inacio,
Right.
Diomande, and Quaresma, who's finally breaking back into the team, who I think had a great couple games he's introduced in. Those are our three
Yeah.
young guys, all under 21, I believe. Yeah, I think it's 21, 20, and 20, which is, I mean, that's insane for the class that I think they show on the pitch. Personally, a little biased, but yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think Diomande is great. Actually, I had a great conversation. I'll bring it up. I was just at the cafe with my cousins talking about how Diomande came from this team called Mafra in the second division, who have this partnership, very recent, with Midtjylland in Norway. No, Denmark.
Oh wow.
Who have a partnership with them, right? So they have like 5 or 6, like 4 or 5 Danish players, and then one Swedish player is this goalkeeper Olofsson, who I play for FM Wonder Kid, and this kid is like very talented. He's 23 years old and in net. So there's a lot of these talented young guys from the Danish Scandinavian area, and Diomande also was a Midtjylland player. He's from the Ivory Coast, but he was from them,
I
and
knew that.
he
He
went
looked
on
so
loan.
familiar to me.
He went on loan from
Wow.
Midtjylland to Mafra, who in the second
That's
division,
crazy.
who was there for 6 months. So in 6 months playing in second division of Portuguese football, which isn't exactly the best football there is. But Sporting picked that key signing up, got him, and now he is, like you said, wanted by a lot of big clubs. So I think that kind of thing, I talk about how broke Portugal pretty much is for a lot of the smaller clubs. I think those kind of partnerships where Midtjylland or we see a lot of clubs from Sweden compete in like Europa League and Conference League and stuff. Those clubs who are trying to step up in Europe have these youth players that need to get minutes. Have them come play in leagues like the second division of Portugal that are lower leagues, but still get viewership because then they'll make that money. Sporting paid a good amount
Right.
to sign him, and I think that's a great partnership for the league, for both leagues, for both clubs. So that's a little interesting little bit of information. If you want to check them out one of these days, you can catch their games sometimes on live streams. But yeah, in terms of Sporting as a whole, I mean, it wasn't an easy win by all means. I mean, Portimonense are not an easy club always. They're not playing the best football, but they're not always easy to beat. They try really hard when they play the big clubs. There was the refereeing in Portugal is a little interesting. I think there was some really shady stuff. I think Sporting were getting a lot of the ass ends of the calls sometimes, maybe a little biased, but I think it wasn't the best refereeing game. And then another thing I noticed, the media likes to cover only referee decisions, which I think is why we have our refereeing problem, is because most of the times you watch the Premier League roundups and stuff like that, and they talk tactics, they talk breakdown. Why is Ten Hag not doing this? Why is City missing KDB so much? And they look at tactics, and in Portugal they just look at, oh, should this goal have been allowed? Is this out of bounds? It's just ridiculous. It's silly. But Paulinho is that Arthur Cabral player, which I think is a striker that we paid a lot of money for and doesn't really score that many goals. But he scored a class little back heel flick into the back of net, which is nice. Yeah, I think Sporting are a fun team. I think we have a lot of young players that I like that are up and coming. I think we still need to figure out the best 11. And it's interesting, but we'll see how that goes. And then Braga continue to be a monster force. We talked a lot about their signings. Moutinho scores a goal. Banza scores a goal. Bruma is one of the best players, I think, in terms of form in the league at low key. Like, not even trying to be a little crazy with that statement. I think Bruma didn't reach his potential, but I think he's actually one of the highest performing players in the league right now. And quickly, actually, I think the Portuguese league is up and coming. I think there's a lot of hidden talent. My cousin was highlighting a lot of young players that are playing for some clubs that normally wouldn't get shouted out. But there's one, if I can quickly find him, it's escaping me. The player, who I believe plays for Estoril. Yeah, this kid called Gomez, Rodrigo Gomes. He's on loan from Braga again. Braga is making great business, I think, right now. He's on 10 goal contributions in 14 games from the right wing in a 3-back system similar to Sporting. So he's kind of like a right wing back, really. And he's still on 10 goal direct contributions. He's playing fantastic for Estoril, who aren't the best team, mid-table, but playing pretty good football. My cousin makes the claim that he's going to be making a move to a big club. And so we'll see if that's true. But that's a little name to shout out there. If anybody likes that little hidden gem kind of thing, definitely keep an eye out on that
Having a
player.
nice game here with 2 goals and 2 assists from fullback.
Yeah, exactly. He is quite the player apparently. I'm going to watch him ever more closely now that my cousin has mentioned that. But yeah, he is interesting team, fun little team.
Yeah, I just had one question, I guess, about the Portuguese league. Maybe not a question, but you must feel pretty good. I mean, ever since Sporting beat Porto, they've really kicked on. They've been keeping pace with Benfica and Porto. They still obviously are in first place in the league, which is nice to see. As you are a friend of mine, you support them. I know Jay supports Benfica, but we all don't want to see Porto in first place. So yeah, that must feel pretty good that they're continuing their form and showing that it wasn't a fluke win when they beat Porto.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, like I said, I worry about Benfica because I think they're a good team, and of course they've handed us a loss recently, which I think we were the better side for what I would call a greater percentage of the game. But then they showed their quality into the later stages, and that's when it matters. Playing until the final whistle. So again, I think
Right.
I think we have a really good squad, and I think the title will go down to Sporting or Benfica at the end. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
And then I think because I do want to get back to Pat, who obviously is always a fantastic judge when it comes to our United team, our United club. Right before this recording, we saw a 7-goal thriller in what
Crazy
is
game.
what is lining up to be a very interesting La Liga season, I think. So I'll leave the floor open to whoever wants to throw some thoughts out there, but I think the Girona Atleti game was one to talk about for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Girona in the first half, they came out absolutely flying. I mean, they were all over Atletico Madrid for the first 10 minutes. From the first 30 seconds, I think Dobik missed a chance 20 seconds in. They scored 2 minutes after that, and they probably could have scored again, to be honest, and gone 2 in front. But then Atletico Madrid responded immediately, and then Girona kicked on from there. I was kind of impressed. I mean, it's been the way they've been playing all season. They've only lost to Real Madrid, and they played like a team that deserves to be in first place for probably the next 35 minutes after that. It goes 3-2 at halftime. It's looking like Girona is going to cruise through the second half and see out the victory. But all of a sudden, Morata out of nowhere makes it a hat trick, and it's 3-3. Atletico Madrid dominated the second half. I thought they probably should have scored again and taken the lead and scored a fourth.
They should have won.
They didn't. And Girona, with that, like we mentioned with Aston Villa, that maybe that title-winning luck, they managed to find a lucky, maybe not so lucky, but quality finish in stoppage time to win. And it's just them and Real Madrid up top. They're 10 points clear. I know Barcelona still has to play tomorrow, but it's looking like it's just going to be like a 2-horse race like it is in Italy. Real Madrid and Girona. I was really hoping that Girona was going to come away with the win here and keep pace with Real Madrid. I watched the Real Madrid game earlier, and I was hoping Real Madrid were going to drop points so that Girona could get a little bit of a breathing space up there. But it was good to see that they were able to match Real Madrid and get the W despite Atletico Madrid making a real case for themselves in the second half. I don't know about what you guys thought, but it was definitely one of the better games I've watched this season for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting because, I mean, we're at the halfway point in the season, and they don't look like they're slowing down. They're not going anywhere. It's interesting that the only team they've lost to is Real Madrid. What remains to be seen? I mean, I think, Madrid will probably show their quality over the length of the full season and get the job done. But this Madrid team is a little injured. They have some center back issues that Ancelotti was saying in the press. They are absolutely not going to buy a center back. And he held true to that. I mean, he played Tchouaméni at center back. They held the clean sheet. I know the game was at home. They got the goal from Rudiger, Modric, an assist, timeless. But yeah, I think it's kind of opening up here. I think Girona have a serious chance to shock the world. But I don't know. It'd be nice to sit here and fantasize about it, but I'm not convinced. But yeah, I mean, if they keep up this luck, who knows? They could do anything.
Yeah, and the crazy thing for me with Girona is something a crazy stat I heard before we started recording was Girona finished in 10th place last season, and
Hmm.
they had one more point than they have after 19 games this season.
Right now, yeah.
And they're
Well,
in first place, which is
Oh
absolutely
wow.
incredible. I mean, like that really puts into perspective the step up in quality that they've made this season. I mean, this is only their third or fourth season altogether in the top division in Spain, so
right.
it's pretty crazy that they're doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see the scarf swinging after the 91st minute goal. That stadium was rocking. I mean, I can't even imagine what it must feel like to be a citizen of Girona and a supporter of the club and to see what they're doing. I mean, they're in dreamland, absolute fairy tale. It's very reminiscent of the Leicester season that they had in the Premier League. I really hope they can get it done. We'll see. They beat a really good Atletico Madrid team today, so who knows?
Yeah, so I can jump in, I think.
Yeah.
Finally. Um
Oh,
that was that game. I mean, we're talking I watched a little bit of it towards the end of the second half and I
Mhm.
was shocked to see that they were able to grab the winner. I thought it was going to end, one of those games. It was just like all the
Too
goals in
good
the
to be
first half
true game. Yeah.
and then like there's no way nobody's going to go get a winner. So pretty cool to see that and I mean I've spoke about Jerome in the past. I mean, I obviously didn't know too much about him until this season, like probably everybody else in the world. But you know, the players that we've been talking about are still just contributing. We mentioned Daily Blind, right? He goes and gets a goal. He's been, they're probably standout center back all season.
Right.
And they have the Ukrainian kid up top. I don't really know how to
Dovbyk,
pronounce
yeah.
his name, but yeah, Dovbyk. He's probably going to finish with, it seems like 20 and 20 the way he's playing. It's before
Right.
Christmas, and we get to see a nice Morata hat trick. Scored 4 in the first half, but one got called back, which is nuts. But it's this is a game that we're going to look back on if Girona can finish the league and win and say like this is huge for them to get a nice Fergie time winner, as I call them. So it's going to be an interesting game at the end of the season to really reflect on. But I mean, again, these guys are playing great out of their mind. I mean, Atletico actually showed a little bit of fight finally. Not really a big Atletico fan. I don't really like the way Simeone plays. I think he's too defensive and he outs players who are talented sometimes, like João Felix, for example. So
Right.
I'm not really a big Simeone guy. So I always like to see him lose, and of course, like to see Girona win. So, but they're making a statement, and I think that was ginormous. I think they're here to stay this year. So we'll see. Like we said, not to dream, but see if they can, hold out at least. But they're looking at least second.
Yeah.
So if Madrid, I mean, even with Madrid's injury struggles, they're still winning games left and right. So it's
Mhm.
gonna be a crazy race, and I agree with G. I think it's gonna be that 2-horse race. I don't think now after that staple
Yeah.
nail in the coffin for me for Atletico not making a run at it.
Yeah, I think that was a must win game for Atletico Madrid today. And I mean, Morata had a hat trick, but he probably could have scored 6, to be quite honest with you. And my biggest takeaway, I think, from Girona in this game, especially, like when they're not the better team in the game, they never stray from their
Mhm.
style of play at all. They are always so composed, so calm on the ball. When the going gets tough, it's very reminiscent of how De Zerbi is with Brighton. Like they do not stray away from their style. They are always going to be calm. They're going to take their time. They're going to build out from the back. They're going to find the right way to progress the ball up the field, and they're going to make chances out of it. And we're seeing it time and time again. It's getting results.
Yeah.
And you know who else plays like that too?
Yeah.
Their sister club.
That's
Right.
the
If City goes down 2-0, I expect them to win the game. So
yeah.
it's important, like you said, De Zerbi's team. I mean, over the weekend, I know I was a little late, but I mean, I got to watch the Tottenham game, Tottenham Brighton. So that was an insane watch
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, they very composed. I mean, that's gonna make them either champions or second. Well, they're gonna be second regardless, but that can make or break them for the champions. If they can keep having the composure and
Mhm.
just like not going off their style of play. I mean, that's gonna be ginormous for them.
Yeah. And not only are they composed, but they're confident,
Yeah.
supremely confident in everything they do. And I suppose when you're playing that well, how can you not be confident? because even if they're in first place, they are the underdog in almost every game they play, which I think is really on their side. And that was one of the things I said to John Luke. We watched a bit of the game together. I remember Alex Garcia took a shot from just an absurd angle, and I said, "Wow, like the balls to even attempt that just shows everything." Even one of the goals they scored, I mean, they're running. They choke people out at home. They cause mistakes. There was a really bad back pass that led to their second goal. And when things are happening like that your way, sometimes it's luck, but sometimes you can kind of create your own luck in a way. And I think that's a lot of what Girona are doing. They look immensely confident. But yeah, it's cool to see the levels of composure that you talk about, Pat. I agree. It's something that I notice a lot when I watch them play, even against the big teams. I mean, they went away to the new camp and scored 4 goals and won 4-2. And I know Barcelona haven't been the Barcelona of old and the Barcelona that we watched growing up. But anytime you can beat Atletico Madrid or go away to the new camp and win, it's definitely a memory for sure.
Yeah, beating a European giant. I mean, that's everybody's dream in the league. You don't think Rayo Vallecano wants to go and beat Real Madrid and Barca every time, you know? And Girona are like bringing the fairy tale to life. So it feels like I like what you mentioned, Ange, too, them being the underdog, because it's almost like, when are they going to slip and fall on their face finally, right?
Right.
Like they're riding this crazy high. It's just like, when are they going to fail? When are they going to fall? But they've kept pace, and they're tied with one of the top 3 giants of Europe, which in Real Madrid, obviously. So for them to just hang it in, even, I mean, I would expect them even within 5 points would be a success. It's just what we're seeing right now is just something that is insane. I don't think we'll see it in another league for a while. I mean, we're talking like relegation to first division to now competing for the title all in such a short amount of time. It's just, this is the stuff that we like to see.
Yeah, and like we've been saying with the underdog, I mean, it seems like almost every week it's Real Madrid that plays first, wins, and then it's Girona that have to answer the question: are they good enough? Can they get the job done again? And we're seeing time and time again, every week they can get the job done. They can answer the question and they can win the tough games. So let's see if they keep going. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens when they play Real Madrid in the second half of the season. Be a real title decider. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I think Girona. I think the Girona Atletico Madrid game was a great game to kind of end out what we were able to watch this weekend, because as we talked about through each league we've been through, it's a lot of storytelling about what a club is going through, and I think both of these clubs showed us. Atletico Madrid, and Simeone ball, like Pat mentioned. I'm also not the biggest Simeone fan, but credit where it's due is the fact that he plays normally this dark arts, anti-football type defensive structure where you don't score many goals against Atleti typically, and if you do score, it's a pretty great performance. And they've transitioned more to an attacking side. Obviously, seeing the fact that they conceded 4 and scored 3, so it shows that clearly. And then Girona, like we hinted at and mentioned, the Man City sister club. I mean, 2 of their key players, I think today, besides Daley Blind, who I think is key because of his age and but just his quality too. But what's his Jan Kotu and Savio are 2 players that are, if I can pull it up quickly, are players that are in the City group. Yeah. Troy's in France, which is a Man City group player. He's on loan from them. Probably either make the loan permanent or just go straight to the big club, to City next season if they need it, and if he fits their bill. And then of course Jan Koto is on loan from City. So I think those are 2 standout performers going down the right wing for me today. And I think, again, that just shows, like you were just saying, from building from nothing to now something absolutely insane. It goes a lot to say about this whole football group organization thing, where we instill confidence in clubs by saying, listen, City have been dominating England and Europe a bit with their quality of football. Why don't we play the same brand? Why don't we just try it? Why don't we borrow some players from clubs in the group that we highly rate through scouting? And it obviously pays off immensely.
I can actually piggyback off that as well, because one of the things that I noticed watching the game, I mean, there's a lot of players that are from big clubs. I mean, they have Eric Garcia, who obviously struggled at Barcelona but has come to Girona and made a name for himself. the likes of Alex Garcia, who's now wanted by Barcelona, was also a Man City player at one point. They have Miguel Gutierrez on the other flank, young fullback. He was a Real Madrid youth product as well. So it's just really cool to see the recruitment they've done. Pablo Torre too, right? Is he not? Yeah, he's on loan from Barcelona as well. He started for Barcelona. He became an integral piece of what Barcelona was able to do last season at one point. So it's kind of crazy to see the results that this young crop of players can produce. And I feel like we've kind of had an overall youth theme this episode with me talking about Milan and us also talking about some of the United youth players that I'd love to get Pat's opinion on soon as well. But it just goes to show, I mean, these kids can play. They're hungry. And I know the saying is, if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Yep.
I think this Girona team is certainly proving that. There's some players who are playing well above their age range, showing real quality, real confidence. It's a joy to watch.
Yeah, I had been sitting at the cafe, like I said before I came here, and I had been talking about this Girona game because we were watching it. And if you look, Daley Blind, who we talked about already, is class, and timeless class. And then Gazzaniga, who's in net, are the only two players above the age of 32. Everyone else is 26 and under. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
And like you said, coming from big clubs, I mean, Paulo in net has some 70 odd games in the Premier League. That's nothing to sneeze at. And he's an age seasoned goalkeeper. I think he's not the top 10 goalkeepers or anything like that, but he's quality. He's got shot stopping class.
He's quality. I rate him.
Yeah,
100%.
and then like
He's
you
a
said,
good
Ange,
keeper.
a lot
Great
of
with the ball at his feet too.
Yeah, exactly. And they, like they said, they play like that Man City. I mean, Ederson is obviously the world's best ball at their feet goalkeeper. And, dude, they play high-quality football with, like you said, Angel, a very low age, being 26 and under, a lot of them under 21, to be honest. So it's interesting.
Doesn't that make you guys feel good when you see that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we're not old at all. We're not old at all.
We're sitting here recording a podcast at
Right.
25, 26, and 24, 25, and these guys are out there, scoring goals for
Balling.
Atletico. I mean, scoring goals on Atletico Madrid. So
Yeah.
Right.
And then, yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to, Nate. You just had a good point. You said that those are the only two players over 32, and I think like if I was building a team and I wanted two positions to have over like veteran players, it would be
Fully agree.
center back.
Yeah.
I would also take a veteran goalkeeper because, like John Lucas said, he thinks that after 30 they really get into their stride for a goalkeeper. They have that little window, and I think for me those two positions are like ginormous.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need a veteran center back to obviously clean up the mistakes of the younger one next to you. That's always very helpful. But the way that they read the game, they may not have the speed anymore. So that way the mind and the IQ gets to roll a little more. And then obviously what John Luca mentioned before on the other pod about goalkeepers,
Fully agree.
I think that's really carrying them because I don't think Gazzaniga's hasn't played a game. He's probably missed one or two, and Daley Blind seems to be. He was always fit for United. He was always in the lineup, and even for Ajax too. So those are players who don't get paid a lot, don't get the respect they deserve, and go out and put a great gritty performance in every week because they use their age and their IQ to really carry them along now.
Yeah. It's such a good point you make too, because even looking at someone like Daley Blind in his career, like you just said, he's played for three massive clubs in his career: United, Ajax, and Bayern as well. And just having those Ajax roots, he must have been around so many young kids. He must have mentored tens of great young players. Look at some of the players that he played alongside that have kicked on and made careers for themselves, the likes of Matthias de Ligt. I know he's unfortunately sitting on the bench for Bayern now, but you have Frankie de Jong. He was a part of that Ajax team that made a great run in the Champions League. Super exciting. He has bags of experience. He must be he must be just a great guy to have in the locker room and ask questions with and go to for advice. That's a good point, Pat.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think Daley Blind is extreme class, and I think he's played at huge clubs and a lot of great players. And I think, Pat, you made a fantastic point. I think goalkeeper and center back, I totally agree, key positions in terms of age and experience. I want to actually use that to bring us back to where we wanted to bring it back due to our unfortunate circumstances. Now that you are here, we mentioned,
Yeah.
I'll give you the chance to kind of talk about Nottingham Forest. Nothing to sneeze at. I mean, Nuno Espirito Santo coming in and he's trying to make a name for the club, and they're playing well. So credit to where it's due. They played at home. But we mentioned briefly that with AFCON coming up, missing some key players, already in a team, Man United team, that we've talked about how they can't get consistency. Onana will probably be out. What were your thoughts following that United game? And then I'll just ask you how you feel coming up against these next couple of games as you hopefully get some players back, but you might lose some as well.
Yeah. So the United game, I mean, I thought the first half I almost fell asleep. It's probably the worst half of football I've ever seen. Quite frankly, it was pitiful. I mean, there's not anything even to say. They were knocking the ball around. It looked like they were just playing keep away. That's
Training
nothing.
session.
There's probably nothing, literally nothing else to say. Okay, so second half, our brilliant manager, I know that I said I back him, but I'm going to badmouth him right now.
I
He
already
needs
know
a
what you're
goal,
gonna
so
say.
he's going to bring on McTominay at CDM.
Mhm.
Okay? And I've spoken about this before, right? You play, I mean, we're playing Ericsson and we're playing McTominay at CDM, just to let you guys know. So if Ericsson pushes up like he does, because obviously that's what he's there for, the deep lying playmaker, and then, he's going to push up. But, McTominay is just running into space. They take off Kabi. I mean, I didn't think he was playing bad. I think he was important just presence-wise because, I mean, you have a 6 literally just to sit there.
He got
Let
it
him
wrong.
sit there. Absolutely. He fumbled the
Yeah.
entire game because if he's there, right, on the second goal, the Gibbs-White goal,
Yeah.
he's free in space.
Yep.
Like, nobody's tracking
exactly
because
what
Ericsson
Bobby
wasn't
been.
even sniffing his
there
shorts.
was
Yeah.
like 15 yards of space between like McTominay and Ericsson and the center backs. And you could say I'm as a defender, I'm always like, hey, maybe if Evans or Varane stepped up differently instead of trying to block the shot, But I mean, at the end of the day, like the CDMs need to come back. So he got it completely wrong. I don't understand why he subs on Ahmad at the 54th minute. Why not just make the change at halftime? Because Anthony is terrible. He is terrible. I was so happy to see Ahmad back, and he immediately started making an impact. Like the way he links up play with his passes is great.
Mhm.
I think. I mean, if Ahmad didn't get hurt, I think he'd be starting. Which I hope that Anthony never plays another game for us because he just can't do it. I mean, we're talking. He hasn't scored since league goals since last a year and a half. I think it was against Nottingham Forest actually, the last fixture, the reverse fixture last season.
April 16th, 2023.
Yeah, so the reverse fixture last season. It's been you're starting a right winger for Manchester United. Like I get it, like we're going through a tough patch, but I mean he should not be starting.
No.
I've been pretty. I've held my tongue. I don't really like to badmouth the club that much, but I mean, whoever signed to get Anthony for 100 million pounds needs to be fired now, because that is disgraceful decision. He was worth 20 the year before, and then all of a sudden he jumps to 100. They didn't do anything anywhere at all, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, sure," because Ten Hag was the coach, and they basically pitied Ajax, and I don't even. That's terrible, but I mean, performance-wise, they started to play good. It's just they were missing that defensive midfielder to really lock the game down because I mean Dominguez came down and they passed the ball across and scored. It was a great finish.
Both
Onana,
goals are scored. Yeah, and both goals are scored from a similar area of the field too.
It's the same goal basically, just in a different corner. But I mean, Nicholas one was Dominguez goal is a tap in. I mean, any of us are scoring that. I mean, Montiel made a brilliant run inside, and it was. But the problem is the CDM is not there to fill in. Like he should have been, or it was just bad to see. And then Rashford goes and scores. So I mean, he's had 2 games in a row that he played pretty good. He's been creating some chances. He looks like he's slowly gaining his confidence back and playing. So it's exciting to see as well. Garnacho, I don't think played well. I mean, I like him on the right because I think that, I mean, I don't, the problem is couldn't go with the same starting lineup because Hoyland was sick. So if we can build off that exact lineup, which it was only one player difference, then it would have been easier. But yeah, in regards to the AFCON stuff, so Onana's leaving, but I don't know if you guys did see that he's playing in the Tottenham game and then flying directly there, and the next day he's playing for Cameroon, which is great. I would like to just see him in the team as much as he can and instill his confidence. I wouldn't mind if the backup goalkeeper played. I'm not really good at pronouncing his name either, but I pretty promising. I mean, I'm not really opposed to him playing, giving him a try. So, and we lose Amrabat, so not really missing much there because he's been pitiful as well. He's had one good game, I think, for half the season. So, I know Nate, you mentioned the back line and everything not really going so well with all the different pairings, but yeah, we have some. I want to touch on some little bit of news that we have. Reguilón's going back to Spurs, but they're going to send him out on loan. So I'm going to focus this up more in a different video I got coming for you guys. But Van de Beek also has been let go to Frankfurt, which is cool to see. Getting some money back for him. I mean, never worked out. Unfortunate injuries, can't stay fit, you can't get his form, he can't get anything really. So it's unfortunate because he had a really good year at Ajax, and then obviously De Jong plays good, and then it seems like Van de Beek and De Ligt are the two that kind of the failed wonder kids, I guess if you say. But yeah, if you guys want to ask me any more questions, you can. But I mean, like the pitiful defensive performance. I mean, it's just it was just hard to watch. And Alanga too. I didn't want to let him go, like I mentioned on a previous pod. But I mean, dude, he's killing us. He was killing us. So he's pointing to the bads off the field, and I'm like, he should be flourishing like that. He should be playing for a club he wants to play for. Because, quite frankly, I mean, we should have had him still. Because, I mean, yeah, he wasn't getting the output, but the problem is when they change the wingers, they go by Anthony. Like, I would rather play Alanga every single game instead of Anthony. 100%. There's no question about it. And for 100 mil, Anthony has to play. So I'm excited to see the UNOS group and get Anthony on the bench because it's gonna be important if we want to create chances, go forward. Like Ahmad does. I mean, I think he should be playing. He's not going to AFCON. I don't know if you guys saw a tweet. They said that he was going to go, and he quoted it and said, "This is a lie."
Really?
Like him on Twitter. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And then one of the United fan pages was like, "Update: Ahmad is not going to AFCON," but like he replied and said he's not going. So it was pretty funny. So he'll be there, which is great because I was scared about him leaving, but that's still a player I care about staying. So.
Yeah, I think you summed the game up well. You made a lot of the same points that we made. Something that I said that I feel like you would have spoke to, which I guess I'll bring up briefly again. We were talking a lot about how there's a couple teams in the Premier League that are really banged up right now. The Brightons, Spurs, obviously United has really had an injury bug. The comparison I made between Postecoglou's Spurs and Ten Hag's United is that pretty soon Spurs are going to lose some key players as well. They're going to lose Pape Sarr, they're going to lose Basuma, they're going to lose Heung-min Son. They've had injuries like James Maddison. The starting center back pairing obviously is out. They're playing a back four of four fullbacks. I want to get your opinion. You must be supremely annoyed at the fact that we look at Spurs churn out almost a different 11 every week, but they already have like such a solid foundation and a core idea and a philosophy in place that everybody seems to understand a lot better compared to what United have going on. And I just think if United had that, they'd be a little more consistent. Like you could play Manu a whole game, 90 minutes, but now it's like when these players come in and they don't hit the ground right away, like Ten Hag feels so forced to change. Like Ahmad, this is his first game back fit. He played 54 minutes. I mean, he's somebody that is probably going to be relied on for a little while. It sucks. I mean, United have a ton of injuries, and there's nothing really you can do about it, in my opinion. But there were some positives we brought up. I think Garnacho has really stepped up and kind of taken the team by the balls. He's becoming a leader warmer every game. I know it's only 2 games back-to-back where he had good performances, but sometimes that's all you need to kick on. It was cool to see Rashford start and score. I've been a big critic of Rashford this season, and I personally was telling everyone I think this is a make-or-break season for Rashford, and so far it's been all break. He's been really bad when he's gotten a chance to play. I mean, he was fit. I mean, he's been fit, and he's been on the bench.
Yep.
If Højlund's not sick, he's on the bench again. So it's been cool to see him find his feet. Maybe he can continue that. I think it'd be cool to see Rashford play on the left with Højlund at striker and Garnacho on the right. I think that's what they should be doing when they're fully fit. And then obviously maybe Ahmad comes off the bench because you're just not going to bench Bruno. But I just have nothing. I just don't know what to expect with United. They came back from 2-0 down against Villa. It was a great result. And you must have thought, oh, wow, like, this is it. Like, not we're back, but what a great result at home to galvanize the fans, to try to get everybody together. Ratcliffe's, is in. We have investment. There's new ownership. And then the first game, it all just comes right back down to earth, crashing down terribly. So I don't know.
I thought we were
I
back.
don't want to go off any of that. Really? Okay.
Generally. Because, you figure you put out the lineup again next game. That's immediately what I think about when we win. Okay, same lineup next game. Let's see what we can do. Build on that, please. Højlund's out. I already knew we were going to play bad because we don't have a 9 at all. Like, Rashford doesn't even – they don't pass 9s the ball, Anthony and Garnacho. So how are they supposed to get Rashford involved,
Right.
And to correct one of your points, Anthony would have went to the bench because they had Rashford on the left. And I know you said Rashford would have been on the bench if Højlund played, but I know what you meant.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah, it's hard because, that should be the lineup, and Ahmad is definitely going to have to be reliant because, I don't know if you guys always see Garnacho goes at every single player. He always cramped up against Aston Villa, and, Dibu was, stretching him out. So it'll be cool to, rotate them. Maybe even we see Rashford get dropped to the bench. Now, obviously not in the full form now, but, a Garnacho, Højlund, Ahmad front 3 would be really cool to see. That's what I think would be ideal. Rashford's form is not the best, right? And yes, it's a make or break season for him. But if he wasn't paid so much and put on this giant pedestal by everybody,
expectation, yeah, I agree.
He hit the ground running at 18, and then he's already creeping into the goal scorers for the clubs. I mean, for the club, as the seasons go on. So. The expectations are high, and they should be because playing at the top level, he did last season. I mean, you should be expecting the same thing every season. It's just not like that with him, unfortunately. So I would like to see. I mean, not that I want to let him go, but I want to see other players get a chance who are hungry. I want to see Ahmad and Garnacho play. I want to see Pellistri play because he even tries harder than Rashford. I want to see these guys play. So, like you mentioned with the injuries, I mean. Ten Hag must really believe in Malacia because, I mean, they get rid of Reguilon at United's will, by the way. And then, Malacia's not even set to return yet. So, and Luke Shaw's injured. So I don't know how you get rid of your only fit left back.
Yeah, it was strange. I thought it was a strange
who actually wasn't even playing bad. Yeah.
Right.
He'd probably be better as a wingback. And yes, he'd probably flourish more Spurs team, but he's going to go out on loan to somebody else anyway. So I don't know how you get rid of him like that. It's just very odd. But yeah, it's to your point about the culture. I think so much bullshit has gone on in the club that something needs to be fresh start. Whether that be, I saw a report today. Actually, they're going to give Ten Hag to the end of the season at least, so he won't get sacked mid-season. And if he does, it'll be shocking, according to what I was reading. So. Yeah, if that has to be it, if he needs to go for the players to really reset and put trust in a new manager, then, so be it, because they can't get rid of 11 players and bring in 11 more who want to play under him. So, obviously what we do is change the manager 9 times out of 10. But, I think Ange, like you said about Ange at Spurs, I think their team is, like you said, they have that really good foundation. I mean, they have they have a Golden Boot winner on their team. That should say enough. And that experience is just in those times that they need him. He's gonna come through, and the way that they hit the ground running was unbelievable, right? So obviously they're gonna have the managers back because they start off so hot. Man, you started bad, and nobody knows where they're going. So they already had that culture built from the first couple games in the league, and like it's really important for them, and that's what helps them in some games. When they may not have the best team out there, but they're backing the manager regardless. And then
Right.
at our club, it just seems like it's a free for all, and there's a million reports going on. Nobody knows what's going on. It's pitiful. Really, it's a shame. I feel awful to be a fan because it's like sometimes I don't even want to watch them play with all the shit going on. But obviously, I will.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that was a fantastic recap of the United game. I think having your perspective, Pat, was invaluable. So I'm glad we revisited that topic. I think now is the perfect time to close with our usual little segment where we do a five-a-side, so rare style, where we have G pick our goalkeeper, and then we'll run through the positions, Pat through defense, Ange through midfield, and I'll pick a forward, where we then pick a flex. So G, the floor is yours. Your keeper of the week, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my keeper a shout this week to probably a unknown player for sure. It's gonna go to Udinese's Maduka Okoye. He
Nice.
started his first ever game in his career today as a professional, or not today, but over the weekend on Saturday. He got a shutout against Bologna. Great performance. He made 5 saves, 5 pretty good saves too. He's fucking huge. He's 6'6", Nigerian goalkeeper. Might be one to watch out for. Who knows where he goes from here? I think his performance warranted at least another start. That's for sure. So big ups to him. I wanted to give him a shout out this week.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout.
Yeah.
I know we touched on that game, and it has importance to the table and everything. So I think that's a great shout, G. Good job. Pat, please, your turn.
Yes. So I'm going with a little bit of a different pick this week. I was thinking about picking Daily Blind because I spoke highly of him earlier, but I'm kind of giving a little underrated shout in my opinion. From the Wolves game, I'm taking Craig Dawson.
Based.
So I don't know if you guys got to watch the game. Wolves Everton, not a lot of people are going to watch it, but I actually did watch the game, and because I was just like, hey, let me put this on because I wanted to see if Cunha could keep up his form because I like him too. So Craig Dawson, what's a West Brom legend right there. One of my I have a thing for the Swanseas, West Broms. So he goes out and gets the nice breaks at center back. So that's I think he put in a great performance, and that's who I'm taking.
Yeah, I know. I know. Ange. Yeah, I like the shot. I know Ange made a funny little comment there. Yeah, I think
That was a base pick.
I think Wolves
Was.
have been interesting. I think and I think their defense has been really well. So I think Craig Dawson getting the goal, I think he deserves a shout. It's not bad. I also think your other shout was good too. I think obviously we talked a lot about Daily Blind. So I think either way, I would have agreed with you. So I'm not upset about it. Ange, let's see if we can let's take your take and maybe Pat has something to say about it too.
Yeah, this is tough. I'm between 3 guys, all Premier League young players. I guess I don't know. Some would say wingers. I would say one of them's definitely a winger, but I don't care. So I'm going to show him love first. Mikel Elise has been in unbelievable form for Crystal Palace. He had a brace at the weekend. He's really been pulling that team along. But I'm not going to pick him. I wanted to pick Phil Foden because I like him a lot. He's been playing really good too, but it's impossible for me to ignore the performance of Cole Palmer. I thought he was excellent, like we said when we talked about the Luton game. He was involved in all 3 goals. Yeah, that's right, Pat.
That's why they called him.
He's been
Cole
unbelievable, dude. He scored one of the better solo goals that we'll see this season. I thought he was great. He's been pulling Chelsea up the table a little bit. They seem to have found better form. Not too consistent, but I'm gonna go with Cole Palmer. I thought he had a great cameo in a number 10 role.
Yeah, I think we talked about him briefly, and I think those 3 goal contributions, right? And I think that was important, super important to that game. So yeah, definitely solidified that game.
I don't know if I just to interrupt. I don't know if you guys got to see Madueke's interview after they asked him. They were interviewing him and Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
And they asked Cole Palmer, how he scored, and he said he felt the guy coming, so he took a step and he knew he was gonna, mess him up, and then, they complimenting the goal, and Madueke was like, yeah, that's why they called him Cold Palmer in it. It was actually hilarious. I was laughing because I'm already seeing a bunch of edits on TikTok now, Cold Palmer edits, and it's like, that's why they call him Cold Palmer, and then it's like fake snow. It's actually awesome to see. It's pretty funny. Yeah. But another kid who's, got outed by his own club, and now he's really making them pay for it. Yeah. And literally scored against them as well. So, couldn't ask for a better recovery story.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a little one out of Angie's book. I did have kind of 3 shouts. We can re-mention them when we talk flex in a little bit. I thought Watkins had a great game for Aston Villa, had a brace of assists to obviously help them win the game. And then I thought, actually from the Wolves game, Cunha had 2 goal contributions. Again, thought that was really good. But in terms of doing what a goal scorer should do, which is score as many goals as possible, and probably could have scored more, I think the man himself, who I like to believe is probably just a money laundering scheme, Alvaro Morata. Had the hat trick. Had the hat trick just earlier today. Probably a really simple pick, but I think
that's not what I thought you were gonna say.
Really, I'm interested to see what you thought I was gonna say, but I think I'm gonna give it to him because I think he got the hat trick and I think he deserved credit where it's due.
All right. Well, I think that makes our flex pick super easy. It should be nobody else but Mohamed Salah because he was the best player I watched this past week. To be honest, Morata's a good shout. He scored a hat trick. I don't like Morata at all, to be honest. Once you play for Juve, I can't. It is what it is. But yeah, that's the first name I'll throw out there for the flex is Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't like the Morata shout for striker. I think he scores a hat trick, but he should score 6 or 7 in the game. And for me, he doesn't deserve to be. He doesn't deserve to get the pick because of that. I think you gotta finish all your chances if you're gonna make our top 5, in my opinion.
To counteract Andrew's point, I can't justify giving it to Salah because they get a penalty. They get a penalty from a dive, and that goes 2 goal contributions. So you're finishing the goal and assist. I know he played well. Just saying. I think it was. I can't reward a dive. I can't do it. So for me, I can't. Olise to me, it was
in it.
Forward of the week because of the chances Morata missed, and that I think Morata would be flex. I would pick him though, just because scoring a hat trick against Girona, who's statistically been top of the league for a while. That's still big of him to do. We have a lot of good shouts. You guys mentioned, Cunha's big too. So just
100%.
going out and doing that, and DePaul, even for DePaul for a flex, he had a brilliant game too. He controlled the midfield and made Koke look like he wasn't even there because it felt like DePaul was taking up all his space. So I think we had a lot of good ones.
What do you
what we
can
agree
forward?
on,
what do you think, Nate?
So you know what? I will. So I guess so. Yeah, you're right. Mohamed Salah might have actually slipped my mind, to be totally honest with you. But I think because I had the controversial take on forward, I will also make a controversial decision to leave it up to 2 players for the flex spot, and we'll go to a vote for it. I want to leave Mohamed Salah in there because I think 3 goal contributions, regardless of the missed penalty, because at the end of the day, ball doesn't lie. So if you truly believe it was a dive, the football gods weren't going to let it happen. So that's why he didn't put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, that's why he missed the one earlier.
Yeah.
Should have made the first one.
I was so disgusted with that call. As a goalkeeper, so disgusted with that call.
I'm not mad.
Dubravka pulls. Literally, you watch Dubravka pull out, and he still gave the penalty. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but to Andrew's point, he did play incredible, regardless of the contributions or not. So I'll even for goal and assist, I can live with putting him in there.
Yeah. So
who else do you think, Nate?
So I'll put him in, and I think I don't know. I kind of like the Matheus Cunha shout. I think that was another tough one for me for forward. But I'll leave it quickly open so we can wrap this up. If anybody wants to shout anybody else for the vote, and then we'll put it to a vote for Mohamed Salah versus a blank spot as of right now. But I think my personal choice would be Matheus Cunha to put him up against.
I really like Michael Olise.
I was
Over
going
the
to say
last couple
Elise as
weeks,
well.
too, I think he's been fantastic.
Damn, I was gonna say Foden, but
It's okay.
We're split over here.
so
Oh.
Morata's out forward.
I don't like Morata. I think we should take Morata out.
I don't mind because I will say I did forget about Salah, and it would have been a tough choice.
Let's put Salah forward.
Okay, I'll take
Yeah,
Salah forward.
We'll
So
put
then,
Salah forward, and then we'll take Elise at flex. I'm with that. He scored twice.
okay, I can take that. I can take Olise too.
He's been unreal, and now we're looking at him. So let's see.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see
Everybody's
that.
looking at him.
I bet you we'll buy him for $85 million. That's what I might get.
And that'll suck.
Some stupid number.
Yeah.
They need to just be smart with that if they're going to go get him. And I mean, I would love him. He's fantastic this season. I mean, those are the players, on a team that is terrible, that is not playing well at all, and he goes out and just puts performances week after week. I mean, those are the players that you need. Because when they start playing around the better players, then that's when they really start to flourish. So, just that was my flex pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with it too.
Yeah, wrap that up. G, remind me of the goalkeeper's name. I forgot how to pronounce it, if you don't mind.
It was Maduka Okoye.
Maduka Okoye in our goalkeeper position. We had Craig Dawson at defense. Ange threw in Cole Palmer, which I think is a great shout for midfield. Mohamed Salah to wrap up the forward position after my controversial, terrible pick, apparently, at forward. Which is fine. This is why we do it. And then, of course, Michael Elise at the flex. I think a little bit of a makeshift episode. We had to deal with a couple things, but I think it was great. I think we had a great conversation. Glad to have Ange back as another point of view. We do have a great episode coming for you next week. We'll hopefully have a lot of the guys in here. Should be about 5 or 6 of us talking about some mid-season review. Hint, hint. Looking at predictions, looking at how we feel about the league so far. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week and the weekend. And we will catch you next time and keep on being a son of a bitch.